This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And we are back for another edition of the Onside Kick right here on Most Valuable Podcasts. This is where we get to talk NFL. And Mark, today's a great week. You want to know why it's a great week?
Why is it a great week?
It is a great week because not only did we have a ton of free agency, your Bears got some wide receivers, my Vikings. The one thing I do want to say here at the beginning, I told you so. I sat here the first time we talked about it, and I said, don't be surprised when he signs with the Vikings. And everyone in that comment section was like, he ain't going to sign. He's just saying it because he's a Vikings fan. Well, I was right. Kirk Cousins was right.
Let's deflate the ego a moment.
That
was popular opinion.
No. When I came in here after Super Bowl week and I said, Mark, he wants to win. And everyone's like, no, he's going to take the money. And I said, no, he said he wants to win. And you were like, well, you know, if he does go to the Jets, then he is lying. You were kind of on the nice side of things. Weren't saying that definitely he was going to lie. Just wanted to say I was right, and we got our quarterback, but now we got to win a Super Bowl, or else it doesn't matter.
I hope he's a bust so badly now. Do you like how in the group text you were excited? I was like, why are you excited? He's a bust.
Yeah, I
immediately flipped on him.
I don't want the Marshall gif of damn to be my reaction after Kirk Cousins is done. But it's mock draft week here on the Onside Kick. Mark and I giving our 4.0 for our NFL mock draft. But before we get into it, got to do a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, you want to support us, check out patreon.com/most valuable podcast. Going to have Christian on next week. One of our patrons is going to be on next week for the month of March. You want to be like him, check out patreon.com/most valuable podcast. Also, you want an MVP t-shirt? That link is also down below in the description. Then finally, mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where we put everything up for MVP each and every day. And then go on to iTunes. If you have an Apple podcast, you have iTunes, go ahead and give the Onside Kick a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. But Mark, we have our 1.0 or our 4.0. We're doing them in groups of 10 and then 11. We're going to start with the first 10. In this first segment, as we always do, I will start with you.
All right.
Take us through your 1 through 10.
Well, let's do it. All right, so we're going to start with the Browns. They're going to take Saquon Barkley, the running back out of Penn State, number 1. Giants next are going to take Sam Darnold, the quarterback, USC. The Colts are going to take Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State. Browns, they go up again, and this time they're going to take Josh Allen, the quarterback with a cannon out of Wyoming. The Broncos next are going to not take a quarterback. They got Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back, Alabama. Jets go with Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of the Ohio State University, going to the Bucs. The Bears are going to get Quentin Nelson, the guard out of Notre Dame. The 49ers take Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver out of Alabama. And then to, continue rolling the tide, the Raiders are going to take Rashaan Evans, linebacker out of Alabama.
Well, I noticed something. It was either in my 2.0 big board or my 3.0 big board on the Primetime Podcast. I literally had it was like Ridley, Evans, Payne, back to back to back. And it was just, I'm doing the graphic and I'm like, Alabama logo, Alabama logo, Alabama logo, all in a row. But let's do mine starting at the top with the same Cleveland Browns, same pick as Mark had, Saquon Barkley, running back from Penn State. Then the Giants going quarterback, but I've got Josh Allen, the quarterback from Wyoming. Colts going with Bradley Chubb, defensive end, NC State. The Browns via the Texans taking Baker Mayfield, the quarterback from Oklahoma. At number 5, Quentin Nelson, the guard from the Fighting Irish, going to the Denver Broncos. Number 6, Sam Darnold, quarterback from the Trojans in Southern Cal, going to New York to be with the Jets. Number 7, Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back, Roll Tide, going to the Bucs. The Bears at 7, taking Denzel Ward, the cornerback from the Ohio State University. Number 9, the 49ers going Tremaine Edmonds, the pass rusher from VT. And then at number 10, the Oakland Raiders, but soon to be Las Vegas Raiders, will take Roquan Smith, the linebacker, almost said running back, the linebacker from the Georgia Bulldogs. And the first thing we're going to look at, Mark, is teams that either needed quarterbacks or got quarterbacks with this free agency. And I want to start with the Browns. Want to start at the top, well, the 1-4 pick, because for me, I was a little bit confused on what to do for the Browns, because originally, when I put it in, I was like, you know what? They've got Tyrod Taylor. Go Saquon at 1. Minka's there at 4. Take Minka Fitzpatrick. You've got Tyrod Taylor. But then when I came back to my mock, and I was like, you know what? Let me see Tyrod's contract. And I looked it up. I'm like, all right, he's for sure done at the end of this year. I mean, they could technically re-sign Tyrod, but do you want to look back and say, well, you know, Tyrod's decent. He was an okay starter for us, but really we should have got a quarterback within that 2018 NFL draft, and that's when I changed it. And for me, I went with my second quarterback off the board. I went with Baker Mayfield, the guy that I believe could go into Cleveland and have the attitude needed to be a winner with the Browns. What do you think with the Browns after the moves they made, bringing in Landry, Taylor, and Randall?
First of all, I appreciate you putting your money where your mouth is here with this pick from when we talked about should the Browns do it, and you said yes, and you're sticking through it. You know, I think they could. They certainly could do that. Tyrod Taylor is obviously a bridge quarterback for them. Tyrod is destined to be a journeyman quarterback at this point in his career.
Thank you, Buffalo.
Which is unfortunate because, you know, he was good in Buffalo. Was not amazing, but he was good.
It's better than Nathan Peterman.
Who is currently their quarterback. So,
well, for now. The draft
until they
hasn't
draft
happened
their
yet.
rookie. Yeah. So, things will happen, obviously, with that. But for the Browns, yeah, it's obviously a bridge situation. They're going to look for somebody who can play and not have to have somebody else start. That's why, actually, I think both of us have really good picks for them with Baker Mayfield or Josh Allen, both being guys that, you know, it's not Josh Rosen who's sitting there thinking that's your most NFL-ready quarterback out of the group. These are guys who could use a year. Now, I think Josh Allen probably could use a year a little bit more than Baker Mayfield could, because Baker Mayfield's that kind of personality where he's really going to take over a team. It's going to be hard for Tyrod to fight that, I think, especially in a place like Cleveland. This is where Johnny Manziel was. You know, we all remember. I'm not comparing the two necessarily. I'm just saying we all remember how quickly people cheered to get Johnny out on the field. Yeah. It's like having Tebow as your backup. The crowd is going to turn on you the second you throw an interception.
Johnny football.
You know,
or having Tebow.
And Baker Mayfield, you know, same amount of syllables as Johnny Football, so it works really easily. And Josh Allen, I think, is the same way, but he's going to not necessarily get commanded as quickly.
Here's the one thing I want to add, and I was watching NFL Live today, and it was Bill Polian, and I understand Bill. First off, let's be honest, Bill's an older guy. Bill's more a reserved guy, and he's been in that role of scouting players. Which guys do I want for the Indianapolis Colts? And he's got every right to say, hey, let my track record speak for myself, because we had really good teams with the Colts when Bill Polian was there. But he said the one thing, and this is where I kind of disagree with Polian. They're talking about Mayfield. And he said again, like, you know what, I'm the most accurate, I'm confident, and basically...
He's pretty much said, I'm going to be the best.
Yeah, basically, that he said he is the best quarterback in this draft. And Polian said he needs to show a little bit more humility. He needs to show it where if he stepped into, they said, like a situation like New York, to where he's even said, like, hey, you know, I'm going to step in, and I know that guy's been here for years, but my goal is to win that starting job. Which to me, I look at that and go, great, that's why I drafted you.
Yeah, of course.
Have that attitude. I mean, there's a different side to where you can, like, that attitude can go into an evil place, let's say. But it's like Louis Riddick said. You talk to the head coach at Oklahoma. You talk to that coaching staff. You talk to the players at Oklahoma. He goes, there's just something that just playing with this guy, having him on your team, anyone who's been a teammate of his or a coach will run into a wall for that kid. And that's the kind of power that he has, being a leader of a team, of an offense.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of good moves going on with Cleveland right now, and Tyrod Taylor is one of the kind of undersold ones here. The ones that people don't want to talk about so much. So, and part of that's because we know they're probably still going to draft a quarterback. They said, we're going to fix this quarterback situation. They kicked Kaiser out the first chance they had, which is good. He's going to
I mean, for the Packers, now he's the incumbent backup, because I'm assuming that's what that means.
No. He's not the backup. He's starting day one. I'm putting it out there.
Aaron Rodgers, your time is done.
He's done. They got to cut him. They got to cut him. He returned to the IR after he left it. They have to cut him. The league rules say they have to. Of course, the Packers are going to follow those rules, and Goodell is going to enforce it.
Instead, they'll cut Randall Cobb.
That's why they are. Yeah. So they got rid of Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. Like, good enough, right? But the Browns obviously need it, but they've done enough. They've made some good acquisitions to say, hey, all of a sudden we might be able to compete. Let me see if I can find the comment really fast.
Well, there was one that said they're the second best team in the division now, in our comment section.
Exactly. That's exactly the one I was going up to see if I could find it really fast. But, it's kind of true in a way because the rest of the division's fallen off. It was
like the Ravens. We're going to get to that. We're basically talking about three-fourths of that division today.
Curry, 1, 2, 3.
But, the Ravens took a step back. The Bengals, they're a team that, I don't think we're going to hit them today, but interesting to say they trade back. They're now at 21. Like, part of me goes, yeah, I know you get, they got, a tackle or a guard from the Bills. Yeah, I know you could need that, but it's like, couldn't you have basically stayed at 12 and got someone that could have helped your team even more? Really, to me, this division, everyone except for the Steelers have the Le'Veon situation.
Yeah.
The Ravens whiffed on wide receivers in free agency. The Bengals are moving back, and they weren't really a great team last year. Browns are moving up. Everyone else is moving down.
They have to move up. They were 0-16 last year.
Well, we hope. We hope they win. Like Dave and I said, I'm like, maybe they can win a game. He goes, no, not just game. Games with an S. Because that's how many games they're going to win this year.
Would be preferred. Now, to move over to some of these other teams, the Broncos and Jets are the most interesting to me. Because both of these teams, I sit there and I say, yes, you got somebody, but similar to the Browns, your somebody is not an answer. But these two teams, I feel like they might try and force that person to be the answer.
Here is the question I'm going to ask you, because he is on the, at 5, he was on the board for you. For me, he was off the board. Today at Baker Mayfield, I almost said Johnny Manziel, didn't mean to. Baker Mayfield's pro day, the Broncos had the most representatives there with 7, John Elway being one of them.
Yeah.
Is there a high chance, although they've got Case Keenum and it's a 2-year deal, that they draft Baker Mayfield at number 5 still?
I do think it's still a very real possibility for the Broncos, or honestly for the Jets, to draft whoever is still there. For me, Baker Mayfield's still there. And the reason I say that is because Case Keenum is not an answer. I honestly don't think Case Keenum...
He's a stopgap.
Is any different than Trevor Siemian, who they just got rid of.
I think he's a step up from Trevor Siemian. At least,
why?
And here's the thing with the Case Keenum argument is, to me, I want to say he's a step up. But however, the retort to that is the Vikings have a better team than Denver.
Exactly what I was going to say.
This is the test for Case Keenum of how good are you? Because really, it's going to answer: are you being a good quarterback now? Or did you just have a good team around you?
Yeah.
Are you good, or were you Trent Dilfer? That's basically what this is.
Case Keenum has had his starting opportunities before, and they did not go well.
No.
Not until he got to a really, really good team.
And Kubiak was a guy, I believe, that drafted Keenum.
No,
he was
undrafted.
Wasn't he?
He was an undrafted
that's right,
quarterback.
but signed. He was with the Texans when he signed with the Texans.
Yep. So I really don't think those guys are any different. You can go ahead in the comment section and say which one you think is better, but to me, that's a pretty lateral move.
Well, there's a reason we got rid of him.
Exactly.
Well, the Vikings got rid of him.
The Vikings would have gotten rid of him in the playoff if he wasn't on that role. I think I still firmly believe they wanted Teddy to be able to come back and start one of those games.
It was funny how Mike Zimmer would never commit to him.
Yeah.
Whenever he was asked about him, he would never firmly commit to Case Keenum.
Case Keenum is a fine quarterback, but he is not anything special. The Broncos will want to get somebody. Now, like I said, though, I do feel like some of these teams, the Broncos or the Jets, who now had Teddy Bridgewater. And
McCown.
Yep, and McCown. I do feel like both these teams could try and force the issue and say, no, Case Keenum, that's our guy. Or Teddy Bridgewater, he's going to be back, and we're going to be able to do good things with him. I do think both these teams could try and force it, but at the same time, I'm assuming they're going to be realistic and at least entertain the idea of drafting one of these quarterbacks. Well, I did struggle to... I felt that the Jets, more so than the Broncos, I really thought probably would strongly consider taking a quarterback, but they need linebacker help.
Yeah, they do. But for me, this is what I was kind of thinking with these teams is so the out of all the teams that you just said, forcing the issue of saying the guy we signed is our guy, the Broncos are that guy. The Broncos are that team.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, they still got Paxton Lynch on the roster.
Well, he's not going to be on the roster much longer, let's be honest. I mean, they got rid of Trevor Siemian. I think Paxton Lynch is next. It's a failed project. Get rid of it.
It is, yeah.
Like, failed project, get rid of it. And I don't think the Broncos are going to waste a top 5 pick on a quarterback. They're going to double down and say, you know what, Case is our guy, and we're going to go ahead. And I looked at it, and I was like, you know what? They need a new left guard. Quentin Nelson is sitting there. Go ahead and take Quentin Nelson, protect that new quarterback that you got. Either worry about the backup quarterback later, or say, hey, you know what, if Case doesn't pan out, then we're going to do it. Because another point that they brought up on NFL Live that I never would have thought about was that John Elway's the guy where when you come in, you better start winning, or else he will get rid of you so quickly. Because all John Elway wants to do is win. Win, 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 because that's what he did when he was a quarterback. Yeah. So if you're not going to win, they're going to get rid of you, and they're going to get another guy.
And I mean, and they've shown it in the past, too, of how quickly they are to kind of turn people over and say, all right, you're out of here.
Yep. And that's exactly why I think they're the team. The Jets, though, both of their quarterbacks, McCown and Bridgewater, 1-year deals. So that's why I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, Josh Allen's off the board, Baker Mayfield's off my board. Rosen or Darnold? And to me, both of those quarterbacks could fit with that pick. The reason why I go Darnold is from a leadership standpoint. Yes, with all the negatives that we've talked about of recent, he's probably 1, if not 2, on the ranking of quarterback leadership of these quarterbacks. It's probably him or Mayfield are number 1 on that list. And I looked at Rose and I said, there are so many questions about you, about condescending being condescending while talking to wide receivers. Whenever a coach tells you something, you got to ask why. There's so much negative with Rosen's personality that I would just say, I don't even want to deal with it. I'll go Darnold, and Darnold could sit a year and then be their starter year 2. Or take over year 1.
I totally understand why you have Josh Allen going to the Giants, but it's so interesting to me to see Josh Allen being your first quarterback off the board.
And the thing is, the reason why I had him go to the Giants is really because of what the Browns did at number 1. The Browns go with Saquon Barkley, and the Giants, I think they're getting Jonathan Stewart, or they had him visit today. And I would look and I'd just go, fuck, man, we wanted him. And then you're sitting there going, well, our top 3 needs, quarterback, tackle, running back. Running back, we're not going to take there because Barkley already went. Offensive tackle, maybe Orlando Brown or Mike McGlinchey, but I'm not taking either of those guys way up at number 2. And I'll sit there and I'll go, hey, you know what? How many years does Eli have left? All right, 3? Josh Allen can sit for 3 years. Josh Allen could be that guy that sits Aaron Rodgers styles and have probably the most potential out of any of the quarterbacks. Like you said, had a cannon at the combine. Yards. I feel like he'd be the best choice for a sit for 3 years, sit for 2 or 3 and be okay. Not okay with that, but be able to transition that. The rest of them, you're starting them almost right away. Or trying to start them right away.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen definitely needs to sit. I mean, I think any of these guys need to sit with. I think Josh Rosen's the most NFL ready quarterback. There's a reason why he goes to the team that he goes to later on. But yeah, I definitely can agree with that.
What about your Bears? You said you want to talk about the Bears.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Bears because they completely shut down the Bears are going to draft Calvin Ridley conversation.
I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
I love it. And the nice thing is, when I came to the Bears pick, I'm sitting there and it's, Denzel Ward wasn't there because the Bucs just took him. And the Bucs definitely could have taken Quentin Nelson. But to be fair, the Bucs don't need a guard. They need a tackle more so.
Yeah.
So it's not a perfect fit in that case. And they definitely do need some defensive back help. But it's good for the Bears because the Bears are returning with Prince Amukamara coming back. I said that very weirdly, but whatever. With him coming back, they're returning their whole defensive backfield right now. The starters, at least. They're bringing all of them
Now,
back. So they're
my
obviously
question
saying that
is-
they're at least somewhat happy with them.
Is Kyle Fuller for sure coming back? Because the last thing I heard about Kyle Fuller is he got the
Well,
transition.
they
pick.
at least have the ability to match.
Okay.
You
So
know.
it's not for sure that he's coming back, but it's pretty heavily that
It's
he's
pretty
coming
obvious
back.
that
Okay.
unless someone's going to pay him a really big amount,
so
the
much
Bears are
that
saying we
Ryan
want
Pace
it.
goes, no way.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know, and I haven't heard any rumors or anything about other teams interested. So yeah, I mean, for me, this is the defensive back is a lower need all of a sudden. Wide receiver is still a need because really there's a lot of question marks still once you get past the new acquisitions. And Cameron Meredith is not, I think, a viable option to consider for that high up.
You're telling me.
And part of it's, you know, his injury. But you sit there and on my board, and I know he's not available on yours, but on my board, Quentin Nelson is there. You don't hesitate. I mean, that's a solid interior. Injury issues aside with Kyle Long, obviously, but that's a solid interior with now Quentin Nelson, Kyle Long, Whitehair as well.
The Bears need
that would be great.
either of the offensive line positions because, like, you've got, like, I'm looking at NFL and they put it perfectly. Tackle-wise, you can look to replace Bobby Massey or replace Josh Sitton, who's no longer there. And then offensive guard is in need. So really, any offensive line is good if you're a Bear fan. And Quentin Nelson is the best offensive lineman of the two positions in this draft.
Yeah,
like, there's no
would
question.
It would be a solid pick. I mean, for once, the Chicago Bears, which they still have a lot of things they need to do, but for once, the Chicago Bears...
they're nowhere near being done.
Yeah, exactly. And the Chicago Bears, for once, are sitting there saying, well, we have some offensive weapons now. You know, they're trying to do that. They could totally go defense here. Tremaine Edmonds still on the board for my Chicago Bears pick. I could definitely see that happening for them. You know, some of the other defensive players would be nice, but you can't pass on Quentin Nelson if he's there.
Last team I want to mention. This is going to take us into the second segment. So if you're on YouTube, this is a tease. If you're on Blog Talk Radio or podcast services around the world, this is going to be part A to part B that will go into the second segment. The Colts. We both have them at Bradley Chubb, but the question I want to ask, what's the probability that the Colts either A, get a call, and B, trade that pick back? That they get a call from a team, I'm thinking the Bills, and go ahead and trade back with number 3 instead of taking Bradley Chubb, being for sure what we need. Let's trade back, accumulate picks, and take a later first.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are trying to move up, so it's possible. The Cardinals could be one too, but when it comes to the Colts side of it, I definitely think phone calls could be made, especially if, let's say, the Giants don't take a quarterback. You know, Browns and Giants
all 5
don't.
quarterbacks on the board.
If everybody's still there, it's very appealing to trade into that number 3 spot to skip the Browns, the Broncos, and the Jets. And it doesn't even have to be the Bills trading up or the Redskins or not the Redskins, I'm sorry, or the Cardinals trading up. It could be the Jets trying to skip in front of the Broncos and the Browns.
Could be the Broncos
trying
to skip ahead if they're looking for a quarterback.
Exactly, you know. It's interesting. The Colts have a very desirable pick. Now, if I'm sitting there for the Colts, I don't know if I want to pass up on the chance of having Bradley Chubb on my team if he's there. Or, you know, or if it somehow is Saquon Barkley that's there. I don't know if I want to pass up that opportunity, but
you want to know
it's a very appealing pick.
The only reason why I say the Colts need to trade back is because, 1, you get more picks. 2, I'm just going to use Bills and Cardinals as the example because they're the teams below the Jets that need quarterbacks. You take either one of those picks for me. Well, more so the Bills pick because I think the Redskins, you'll see why in a second, but you still got a guy like, if you're trading with the Cardinals, okay, we can go get a Harold Landry who could still be available at that point. If you go get the Bills pick, it's all right. Marcus Davenport could still be there. Like, there are defensive end type players that you can get later in the first round, and then you're getting an accumulation of picks also with that. You're not just taking one player. Hey, we're getting this pass rusher, and we got some more picks in this draft.
You don't want to use the Chicago Bears Mitch Trubisky trade as the example.
Because I think they got fleeced.
No, not at all. Not when you look at the comparison of what I'm going to say right now.
Okay.
You want to look for the Texans trade for Deshaun Watson, or you want to look for the Chiefs.
Give me a first
trade
next year too.
Exactly. If you're just going to trade back with maybe the Broncos, something that's not much of a trade, or not much of a distance, and you're going to get some seconds, third, fourth, whatever it might be, that's not a good trade. Take your Bradley Chubb.
I would say
get that high level player.
My ideal trade partner with the Colts would be the Bills. Give me the 12th, give me your first next year, and then give me a later pick.
A third, a fourth.
A fifth, something like that. One more pick. Maybe even like if they could get, and this might be a little greedy, if they can get the 12th, next year's first, and then 2 picks later, that would be a steal. One is ideal, but if you could work 2 out of it and get like a third and a fifth or a third and a fourth, that would be like, we would be praising Chris Ballard after the night of the draft. Be praising him for what he did.
And it's realistic in a way, too, because you think about a team like the Houston Texans. The distance there, not that far off from a distance between the Bills to the Colts.
And that's why the second part we're going to go into in a second. But for my YouTube audience, let us know what you guys think down below about our top 10. Let us know who you would have in your top 10. What do you think about some of these teams? Let us know down below in the comment section.